I have not done this in a while. It's weird getting back into vlogging after taking like a month or 2, 3 month long break. But yeah, today is release day for Crescent City 3, House of, what is the name of the book? House of Flame and Shadow. I finished my reread of House of Sky and Breath 2 days ago. It got another 1 star. I really don't like that book, but we'll dive into all of the reasons that I did not like it later on in the vlog. It's super early in the morning. I'm trying to get my voice back. I'm gonna take my kids to school. I have a doctor's appointment at 9 a.m. and then we're heading to Barnes & Noble's to grab a physical copy because I did not pre-order. But I've decided that I kind of want eyes on the page for this one. Something just tells me I'm gonna need it. So I don't wanna rely solely on audio, but that's kind of like our tentative plans for today, and then hopefully we get some reading done. I'm officially back home from my errands for this morning. I watched this like summary video that was posted by, I think her channel name is Honest Fiction. I could be wrong, but I'll put the little screenshot here. And she did a really good job of recapping everything you need to know before going into book 3 if you don't really want to reread book 2. However, there's just so much going on in the plot and it can be so confuddled. I think that I still err on the side of, depending on like how much you are away from like the last time you read the book, like if you were gonna watch this video, if you're able to follow and keep track of everything that she's saying, I think you're good for book 3. But if you watch this video and you're like, girl, what are you talking about, and all of the different plot lines are hard for you to follow, then I think maybe you might want to do a reread before going into book 3. Either way, I am going to now start the audiobook because I did not swing by Barnes & Noble's. I honestly forgot on my way home. That lets you know like how much of a priority this is. But yeah, we're starting with the audiobook. I'm going to get ready to film some videos and then we'll be back and hopefully I have some like initial thoughts. So I'm back. I have listened to precisely like, let me see. Maybe like an hour of A House of, what is the name of this damn book? A House of Flame and Shadow. Hopefully it sticks with me throughout this vlog, but we're an hour into A House of Flame and Shadow, and I am liking it so far. I know I'm as shocked as you, but there was so much speculation around the end of the first book, and we were unsure how Sarah J. Maas was going to tie in this larger world and bridge the gap between Midgard and Prithian, I think is where ACOTAR or the ACOTAR world is. But we all had like this general understanding of, here's what we understand so far as to like how the worlds merge. Now, I am a Laini Taylor fan, and so in Laini Taylor's world, there is a bridge between Strange the Dreamer and Daughter of Smoke and Bone. And the way that those worlds connect is very peculiar and like particular. And ACOTAR and Crescent City seem to be connecting the same way, and I understand that. So you have these groups of supernatural beings that are very, very powerful, that are basically conquerors, but they're conquerors of Fae, or they are Fae conquerors, whatever. And when they get to a world, they consume it, they eat it for energy. But in Midgard, where Bryce and Hunt is, they have kind of redone the history of this world, so nobody actually remembers where everybody came from. We just know that this is like an urban fantasy city where all these different types of animals and creatures and magical beings exist, but nobody kind of knows how they got there. It's just like this melting pot. And you understand that they are consuming people. This is small spoilers. They're consuming people after they die. They're supposed to go to like this bone quarter and this afterlife where the spirits or the ghosts of them will live in eternity. But after that, when they feel like people have forgotten about the dead, or no one alive is really paying attention particularly to a dead person, they are consuming them and kind of making them first light. It doesn't always happen like that, but that's like the general gist of what we get. And you know that the Asteri, the people that are eating this world or using this world for energy and fuel, that they have done this for thousands of years, going from planet to planet or world to world, eating and destroying them and then moving along. Except there's one world that was able to successfully repel them and kick them out, which is Prithian. I hope that's the name of this world, but which is the Akatar world. They came up against the Asteri. There was a big bloody battle and they were able to kick the Asteri out. Now, because these beings live for thousands of years and it's been at least 15,000 years since this has happened, that's basically like 15 days for them. So they want revenge against the Akatar world. They want to go back in there, you know, because this is one of the only places that has defeated them. This world that Akatar lives in, and Hell in Crescent City. These are the two places we know that have successfully stood up against the Asteri and claimed some type of victory. So now you understand like kind of like how this kind of connects. And so to see Bryce interacting with the Akatar characters, I think is really good, because Sarah J. Maas loves to hype and boast up her characters as like almighty and all powerful. And so Bryce has been this super powerful magical being in her world, and everyone looks at her as like this anomaly to society of just power is just drawn to Bryce, and anything she touches turns damn near to gold. And you get the same feeling when you're reading the perspectives in the Akatar world. But I think it's super cool, and what I'm really enjoying is that Bryce, someone who is recognized as a threat and powerful in her world, can be intimidated by the power of the Akatar characters. So it's super cool to see Bryce, Feyre, Amren, Azriel be taken in by someone who doesn't know their history, doesn't know what they're capable of, doesn't know this world, but can look at them and recognize power. And not even that it's on the same level, because Bryce herself essentially is powerful in her world, and she's still like on guard, cautious, like, you know, let's remain vigilant, because I feel like these people could kill me in the blink of an eye. So I think Sarah is doing a good job of writing that. And so I'm gonna give credit where credit's due. That's basically like kind of where we've ended, where they're kind of assessing Bryce as a possible threat, assessing her world as a possible threat. They know that Bryce is lying about certain things, but she is weaving in enough truth for them to be kind of like cautious as well. And so yeah, it's not like, you know, they meet and they're all happy-go-lucky fans. I really think the star of this book is gonna be Amren, because if you've read Akatar, you know that she can be a bit mysterious herself. Sarah J. Maas has never really dived into what Amren is and this history, because Amren's been alive way longer than any other characters that we know. So she's gonna have the most knowledge when it comes down to this, and she is always so picky about her words and what she shares about her past. So I'm hoping that this is the book where, you know, Amren kind of comes through. I'm still wondering why Rhysand from Akatar and Rune from Crescent City look identical to each other. They like so much so that Bryce saw Rhysand and immediately thought that he was her brother, and is still kind of tripping her out when she looks at Rhysand and realizes that it's not Rune. I'm looking forward to figuring out like what that connection is. Either way, I'm gonna take a break right now. I'm gonna do some filming because I owe so much content to my channel. It's crazy. And then we're gonna get back to reading. To be a rather productive day. I did leave my house. I went to Barnes & Noble's. I grabbed House of Flame and Shadow. I still cannot remember the name of this freaking book. Honestly, I think it's a bit too chunky. Like, the books are getting larger. They're getting larger and larger, and they're staying larger. And it doesn't feel like we're getting any additional content. More time with the characters for sure. More time in the world for sure. But are we progressing the story along? Debatable. I also went to Sprouts and to the wine store, so I have a bit of a haul. So in terms of Sprouts, I went specifically for this bread. I don't know what it is about this bread. Maybe it's the fact that it's rustic potato sourdough bread, and I love a potato. Like I love a potato. Like, every time I hear someone say like a potato has no protein, it doesn't. But the serotonin in a loaded potato, my goodness, it's hard to beat. And so for some reason, ever since I tried this bread, I cannot eat a sandwich any other way. Like, it has to be this bread or it's no sandwich at all. And for some reason, I can't go onto the Sprouts app and find this bread so that it can be delivered to my home. I don't know why, but whenever I scan the barcode or try to search the brand or the name or whatever, it does not come up on the Sprouts app, on the Sprouts website. So I literally have to drive like 20 minutes away from my house to go into the store specifically for this damn bread, because I'm hooked, I'm addicted, and like I can't find it anywhere else. I've tried to go to other stores and tried their bread, but it doesn't compare to whatever this brand is. it's this or it's nothing, really. I also grabbed some spinach, which I use in my sandwiches. I also put spinach in my eggs. I do a lot of spinach pasta. Spinach is my go-to vegetable, especially lately. Like, it used to be broccoli, but now, like, honey, you could put spinach in anything. Literally in anything, and I would eat it. I wouldn't question it at all. I also got some bananas for my daughters. I personally don't like bananas. Like, all my fruit needs to be red or green, or I won't eat it. I know that's weird, but that's just the life that I'm living. I also grabbed some strawberries. They look so fresh. I can't wait to clean them and dive in. I also grabbed some green grapes. They're my favorite. I was talking to my bookish friends last night, and I think one of them was eating like a red apple. And comment down below if you're like a Honeycrisp kind of person or a Granny Smith kind of person, because like I love sour and tart fruit. Green apples, green grapes, kiwi, they are my go-to. Like, I love that kind of like soury taste to my fruit. But I think that I'm in the minority. I think most people prefer the purple or red grapes and then like the red apples, but I don't like those as much. Like, I won't gravitate towards them and I won't eat them. But you put a kiwi in front of me, gone. A green apple, gone, honey. Speaking of green apples, I also grabbed this little 4-pack of Granny Smith because I'm such a fan. And then lastly, I went to the deli section and had them break me off like half a pound of mozzarella cheese because I love making homemade pizza, and my cheese has to be gourmet. If I'm gonna do a homemade pizza, my dough has to be homemade. My dough has to be made from scratch and fresh. And my cheese, my mozzarella cheese, it's gonna have to step. Or I could have just went to Domino's or Pizza Hut. Like, if I'm gonna do it in my house, we're gonna do it big, okay? Okay, so that basically wraps up everything that I grabbed at Sprouts. Really small haul. Groceries are expensive, so I wish I could tell you that like I bought a little bit of food and spent a little bit of money, but that's not true. That's not true. I feel like I spent enough. Like, I spent the budget that you would expect that I budgeted, but did I walk away with what matches the budget? It's feeling less and less every time. But I was on Facebook and I saw this post right here, and it was listing wines for red and white wine in order of sweetness. And there were some really sweet red wines that I had never heard of, that never tried. And I was like, oh, I have to try them. Now, of course, these wines, because I haven't seen them or haven't tasted them before, they were harder to find. I couldn't get them from like my local grocery store or like just a here and there like alcohol or wine place. I literally had to go to Total Wine. So on my way back from Sprouts, I stopped by Total Wine because it was so close, and I grabbed 2 red wines and one of the sweetest white wines, because the sweetest white wine that I've had so far is Moscato d'Asti. It's the sweetest, but there were like 2 or 3 more on this picture that were sweeter than Moscato, and I was like, oh, I want to try those. And then I haven't really had a sweet red wine. Like, I've had like a semi-sweet or like a red blend, but I haven't had what is called, I guess, dessert wine, which is like the sweetest red there is. So I went in there and was quickly humbled by the budget, honey, because some of those wines were like $60, $70, all the way up to like $150. And I was like, for a bottle this big, what are we doing? I wasn't ready. So I grabbed 3 of what was like within my budget just to taste it, just to get like the flavor profile. And then if I feel like I, like it and I want to get like a higher quality, that's a different story for a different day. So the first one I grabbed was for the sweetest white wine, which is known as white port. And so I grabbed, I don't really know how to pronounce this. It's Quinta das Cavalas. I don't know. I probably just butchered that. But you can see here, I don't know if you guys can see, but it is a port white wine. This bottle was about $20. If we're ranging it from like Arbor Mist, I guess this is like expensive, but $20 compared to everything else that was on the shelf was a win for me. So I was like, I'm gonna try the sweetest white wine that they had. And then like the sweetest red wine that was listed was a tawny port. So I grabbed the tawny port by the brand Awfully. This one was like $18. for the whole bottle, which I felt like was a really good like deal. It has like a 20% alcohol content. There are like there were notes in the store saying that like when you buy a tawny port, you should consume it within a month of opening it. And on the back of this bottle, it says that the freshness of this wine will last until 8 weeks after it's opened. So there were just a lot of tidbits telling me to like, don't let it sit in my shelf. Like once I open it and start drinking it, then I should definitely start. Like I should finish the bottle. I shouldn't let it sit there for a while. And note taken. And then when I was looking for tawny port, I came across another port brand, which was called Ruby Port. And I couldn't decide, like Ruby Port wasn't listed on the photo. But when I like kind of Googled it, it said that like Ruby Port was a more full body and like fruitful wine compared to like tawny port. And I was like, okay, like how do I know which port I like? So I grabbed a Ruby Port as well. And so I guess I'm gonna do a bit of a wine tasting later this evening. Or I guess I could taste it now, but I'm not sure. I want to chill them a bit. And I will come back to that situation. But if you have tried any of the white port, Ruby Port, or tawny port wines and you have a favorite brand, I'm all ears. And then on the way home, I stopped by my mailbox and I had my monthly subscription book from The Broken Binding. And so I'm gonna open that one on camera because I don't exactly know what book is gonna be in here. Honestly, I have not been paying attention to like new release fantasy, especially in adult fantasy, for like the last quarter of last year. So this is called Northern Wrath. I know nothing about it, but it is part 1 of the Hanged God trilogy, and this author name does not ring a bell either. The back of this says, honor the dead, remember their names, see their faces, and speak of their ways. And this is the sprayed edge design that we have on the side. Let's take a look on the inside. This is the book without the dust jacket on it. And then this is a depiction of the end pages. Honestly, it's kind of giving me like Norse mythology. That's the vibe that I'm picking up from it. But let me see if I can find a synopsis. It says that the author, Thilda, I think is her name, Thilda Cold Holt, is a Viking. No wonder I picked up Norse mythology from it. I can't find the synopsis on here. It only tells me about the author in the back. So I'm gonna have to look that up later. You know what's ironic? Last night I was just talking about the difference between like Norse and inspired mythology fantasy books and like Celtic inspired fantasy books. And I was saying that I don't think I've really come across a lot of like Celtic mythology fantasy derived books, but when I went to go look on Goodreads, there were quite a few that I was like, oh, I never knew that this had like Celtic elements in it. But I don't know why I just decided to share that thought with you guys. It's just ironic that I was like, I feel like I read mostly Norse mythology and nothing Celtic, but who knows. We'll see. This looks like it might be fun though. I'm going to pop on some headphones, get back to this audiobook, do some cleaning before my day is over. And maybe I'm going to try these wines, like do a little sip taste, because I am impatient. I want to know what they taste like. I will be back with more updates that are hopefully book related. I am officially done cleaning up. I'm getting ready to go grab my daughters from school and daycare and whatnot, but I finally was able to match where I am in the audiobook to the physical book, and I am on page 120. So I've been able to listen to over 100 pages, and I feel pretty confident that I can get 200 pages in tonight. That's my kind of like soft goal, but that would require me really to not cook dinner and to like grab some pizza or something like that on the way home so that I can just get back to it. But I don't know if it's like I'm gravitating to it that much. So this will include light spoilers. I'm pretty sure I'm going to put that in the title, but if you're not sure or whatever, this will include light spoilers. So essentially like where we left off from book 2, Rune, Hunt, and Baxian are captured at the end of book 2. They're currently being tortured because Reglius, whatever his name is, of the Asteri wants to know where Bryce has gone. And even though they're not exactly sure where she's gone, they think that they know. They're in cahoots that they're like not going to share any information about where Bryce could possibly be, especially Rune and Hunt. They will die before they give up that information. And Baxian, we weren't really sure if we can trust him in book 2 because he came around saying that like, you know, the perception perception that they had of him was not necessarily who he was. And he is proven to be down with the crown. Like he's holding in his own. I don't know exactly why he's not giving up much information, but right now the Hind, and we know from the end of book 2 that she has an entirely different side of herself that we don't really know if we can trust, especially with like Rune and the Agent Daybright situation. But she is seeing what's going on because they have all kept her secret. And so the Asteri still does not know that the Hind is parading as Agent Daybright. And so she is like, I guess, wanting to save them. And then we also have Ethan, who is desperate to go and get them out. And so he's been trying to convince Declan and everyone else to go and try to save Hunt and Rune and Baxian. And at this point, the torturing seems to be pretty extreme. So I'm not anti-saving them. I don't know what saving them is going to do to the story because, again, I think the place that they think Bryce is in is actually not correct at all. And then when we have Bryce, she is getting to know the ACOTAR cast, the ACOTAR world. She's doing her Bryce little thing. Her and Nesta have met. And so if you've read ACOTAR and Crescent City, then I guess we all I would say we all expected for Bryce and Nesta to be the first characters to kind of forge any type of communication or relationship with each other. So far it's fine. It's not boring me, but it's not going super fast. Like, we're just really jumping back into the book and kind of getting comfortable with the characters and like where they are and what's going on. So no complaints so far. Like, I'm fine, I'm comfortable. We'll see how it goes. I will be back. Hello, lovely people. Good morning. I am out. I substitute at local schools whenever I have free time. So that is what I'm doing today. I'm extremely late though, and I haven't had any breakfast. So it's one of those days. I did do some reading last night. I don't know if I reached page 200 exactly. I think around like 175, 180, because I just couldn't do it anymore. I was very tired, but I will jump back into it if I have time today. I need to edit the videos that I filmed, and happy, what day is it? Wednesday? Happy hump day. Okay, I'm back. I meant to update you guys earlier, but I had a pretty long day and I'm getting ready to get ready, hop in the bed. But I wanted to make sure I do this update before I go to sleep. We are now like 300, a little over 300 pages within the book. I was able to do a good amount of reading today, and so much has happened. We have gotten a full explanation, or a large explanation, of the history between the ACOTAR world and the Asteri and the connections that those Fae have to the Fae in Midgard. I almost feel like this was a bomb of information because we got so many answers back to back. And like, when I think about this book, I feel like Sarah took the beginning to really answer and connect all the pieces to ensure that the readers are on the same page and that we have time to digest this heavy amount of information that we're getting at one time. And that maybe all of the action is going to be towards the middle to the end of the book. And so it makes for a decent pace within this story, because even though a lot isn't necessarily happening in terms of moving the plot forward, we're getting a significant amount of lore and historical references to the book. But in comparison, I feel like we're getting hit with so much information that could have been trickled out more in book 2. We spent a lot of time, I feel, wasting time in book 2, and that some of this could have been better spread out amongst the series. But I'm going to just try to look at this book for what this book is. Now, there's one thing that's kind of grinding my gears and making me upset, and that is the fact that Amren has not really had a sequence within this book so far. If you've read ACOTAR, then you know that Amren is very secretive, very mysterious and quiet about her past. We know that she's not Fae. We know that she's not from the world of Prithian. We have seen her drink blood. I think it was like goat's blood or an animal blood within the ACOTAR series. So we are well aware that she is very different. She used to be in prison. Somehow she was able to escape this prison, and she left her original body behind line. And so knowing that there is a 15,000 year gap between when the Asteri interacted with the Akatar world, and that Amren is older than that and must have been around for that. We get one little snippet in the beginning where she's like, I heard rumors after I escaped from under the mountain about like this connection between the two worlds, but I wasn't exactly sure. It just makes me like, I feel like this was the time where I would have expected more information about Amarin, because you know that history has kind of been rewritten in the Akatar world because no one can really remember the Asteri. When they were in the Akatar world, that wasn't even their name. They were not even identified or called the Asteri. So to know that Amarin has that knowledge and that history has been warped and retold and kind of like falsified, and she is the closest thing to have known the truth, makes me kind of like, were you culpable maybe? Or why would you watch this entire historical revising and not ever really mention anything about it? I don't know. I wanted to see more of Amren in this book, but I guess Sarah J. Maas decided to like hold off on that for a later date. I don't think that, like, I get why Nesta and Bryce are interacting significantly. I understand why Feyre and Rhysand are not really on page, but I'm not exactly sure why it is Azriel and Nesta that are our two like main points of contact for the Akatar cast. I'm hoping that we get back to that later, but things do not feel like they're dragged out, and it feels like we're moving forward. So like at this moment, I have no complaints. I'm rather surprised. I'm rather satisfied. I just feel like there are so many characters, and it's time to start killing some of them off. It is. There's so many tertiary and like side characters and like extra cast that are doing random things here and random things there. We still have not seen Hypaxia. We still haven't really seen Danica's mother. We haven't seen much from just a significant amount, like Fury, Juniper, like we haven't seen them. So it's like there are so many characters on page right now. And there's so many characters that aren't on page right now that the world is starting to feel convoluted, and it's time for bodies to start dropping. That's where I'm at. But we shall see how it goes, because we're not even halfway through. Like, it's going to be a time. But I am going to go shower, get ready for bed, get ready for my day tomorrow, and hopefully we can get halfway through this book tomorrow. Like, my goal is to read 200 more pages tomorrow. So hopefully we can land smack dab halfway through. Good night. Hi guys. So I just reached about like 55% into the book. And I have some thoughts. I feel like, one, I don't see how this was ever gonna be the final book. Like, I know that now it's not the final book and we're gonna get more out of Crescent City. We're gonna get more out of Alcatar. I know that there's more books coming. However, that doesn't discredit the fact that we were under the initial impression that this was going to be 3 books. And unless she like scrapped her original manuscript, this was never going to be 3 books. This world is extremely wide and massive. Crescent City in and of itself, and all the characters that we follow, and the different houses that they're a part of, and their histories, and these creatures are like thousands of years old. That's just so much to juggle, not to mention our main characters. On top of that, we just connected with the Akatar world. On top of that, we still have another realm known as Hell that we haven't really explored at all. And so it's almost as if, like, when were you ever planning to bring all these plot lines together or tie everything in this world together? Or like, there was always going to be more books. Otherwise, why waste time building character arcs for tertiary and like fourth removed characters within this world? Secondly, I'm not sure how I feel about what Alana would call the Scooby-Doo gang, which is like all our outside characters, like Bryce's brother and all of his closest friends, and the mayor that we follow. And there's like side characters that are off doing their own thing that I feel like should be boring me. But for the most part, like, I'm paying attention. Like, it's not the worst thing ever. When I get to their chapters, I'm not like, oh my goodness, like, I'm sick of this. However, Ethan and his obsession with this Frankenstein corpse is really starting to get on my nerves, because do something with the character. Either bring her fully on screen and have her contribute to the cast and contribute to the plot, or bring her in later. This obsession with her and this need to like save her. Like that's his own story. But tell me about it. I don't need to see it. Like you could just mention on page Ethan's off doing whatever. But this better pay off in this book because he was obsessed with her in the last book. He's obsessed with her in this book, and now it's 2 books. Like I need this to pay off. Also, I'm just very grateful that we don't have any more of Danica's secrets coming out, because I did say that like if I found out that Danica was somehow connected to the Akatar world, I was gonna chuck that book through a window because be for real. If you're gonna be anything, be for real. But yeah, that's where I am. We're more than halfway through. I gotta get back to work now, but chat with you later. Okay, people, I am back with probably my final update before I finish the story. I am a good chunk within the book. I just stopped at part 3, which indicates that there's going to be a like avalanche of events towards the end of the book. And I feel like now we're getting into a lot of the action, so I don't want to spoil too much. So yeah, let's just talk about the thoughts that I have right now. There's too much happening in this book. There is too much juggling of an excessive amount of characters and an excessive amount of events that I feel like would be better served if we had put some of this into the second book. It just feels like a grave mismanagement of time and mismanagement of page count, especially because in the second one, it feels so much like she is just trying to get to like the 800 page mark, and she's just trying to get her characters in position for where they need to be going into book 3. But reading this, it's almost as if you had all of this content that could have been better dispersed throughout the story. I still have so many questions, it's particularly about like the mates. It doesn't seem like Sarah is following her own like rules when it comes down to how they find mates. We have had several different instances of mates being found from different species and mates being found from different worlds. But if your mate is already rare enough when you're a fae, to find another mate is extremely rare. But to find another mate that may not even be fae, that might be a different species, that makes it even more rare. That makes it even more harder to find. And then to find a mate that's not your species and doesn't even live in your world, like lives in a different realm, that makes it 3 times as rare to find a mate. Yet every single character in this book is throwing around the word mate. Like you could just go get it from your local Walmart. And it's really starting to frustrate me because I need answers. I need there to be consistency, and I know that's asking for a lot. But I just need a little more consistency around the mate bonding, and I just want us to be a little more cautious before we start kind of hinting that people might be mates. And it's not as if like, you know, thousands of years are passing amongst these people where in one community, in one family, or one friend group, one person finds a mate and they have that mate for maybe 100 or 150 years, and then another person finds a mate. Everybody is finding their mate at rapid pace all at the same time. Like these relationships are being forged and bonded at the same time, and I need answers. Also, chapter 62 was probably the best chapter that I've read this far, but it's also the one that made me the most angry. We got some information around Hunt and his true lineage, his true parentage, and yeah, I just feel like that was unnecessary. It's extremely unnecessary to keep making Bryce stronger. We get it. She is an anomaly. She's super powerful. She's super snarky. Magic calls to her. Light calls to light. Anything she touches turns to fucking gold. I get it. But it's just this constant leveling up of her. It's just extremely annoying that there's just no limit. Like Bryce, any new information that we get means that she's more powerful. We discover something about the history, she gets more powerful. We discover something about the world, about her, the characters that we don't know that are on page, she gets more powerful. We discover stuff about magic, she gets more powerful. It's like, I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it. She's powerful enough. I believe you. I believe you that Bryce is the best thing ever. There is a bit of like a division between Bryce literally being not like other girls, but also making it a point for her to be a girl's girl, to reach out and offer friendship to any female that she comes across, or to offer protection to any female that she comes across. Like, she wants Bryce to be like a very nice Regina George, like a very lovable, like sickeningly obsessed with Regina George, but like not Regina George, right? That's the feeling that you get from Bryce in like all of these books. She's not my favorite type of character, but hey, you deserve representation. If she's yours, if she's the girl for you, the main character for you, I love that for you. She's not for me. Like, listening to the scene where they were sexually involved, my face was just like, just stop. Just take it out the book. Like, I thought the angst was the most annoying part in book 2, because I didn't care about the will they, won't they, are they gonna do it kind of thing. I didn't care because I was really hoping that Bryce was not in game with Hunt. But it turns out, I guess she is in game. Like, that really is her mate, and that's where we're going. But I don't feel it between them at all. Like, are you sure he's her like bond mate? Maybe he's a soulmate, you know? Maybe do we even know if all mates need to be like romantic? Like, they can't be platonic mates? Because I think that seeing the relationship that she has with Rune and the really good brother-sister friendship that they have, like, Hunt would make a really good friend. Like, Bryce is an amazing friend. She goes hard for all of her friends. But did we have to make this connection romantic? Because it's not selling for me at all. So that's kind of where I am. I've been theorizing on Zoom with my bookish friends around what I believe is happening within the story, but she's really going for like cosmic level world connections between ACOTAR, Throne of Glass, and Crescent City. And I'm almost like, Sarah, are you going to be able to juggle all these balls in the air simultaneously? Like, are you going to be able to do this? Because I personally don't have faith. Like, I don't think that you are going to be able to do it, but hey, I could be wrong. So give it your best. Give it all you got, kind of thing. Who knows? Okay, we're back. I have officially finished House of Flame and Shadow, and I have a lot of thoughts. First, I think that I was right earlier when I said that Sarah just had way too many balls in the air, way too large a cast of characters with their own stories, that it just was not possible to wrap it all up in this book. So I felt like I knew that we were only going to come to a point of like resolution for the largest issue at this point, which was going to be the Asteri. But knowing that there is an entire planet where the Asteri comes from, and that they all set off, or a lot of them set off to be world hoppers or world farers to find new planets to conquer, knowing that some Asteri found Prithian. I'm still not exactly sure if it's the exact same Asteri from Prithian in Midgard, and I'll talk about that. It'll be like spoilery, but I'll talk about why I think that. But yeah, I'm still not sure if it's the exact same group. So we have solved the issue of the Midgard Asteri. And so that kind of leaves it open for other Asteris to be relevant later. And so there are some things that, of course, frustrate me a lot about this book. First and foremost, that it is named House of Flame and Shadow. And we know that Jezebel, her boss from the first book, is a part of the House of Flame and Shadow. We know that Fury is a part of the House of Flame and Shadow. And another character in the story actually goes to seek refuge for House of Flame and Shadow. So we have 3 characters that we don't really know much about, especially Fury and Jezebel. Their history is very mysterious. We found out that House of Flame and Shadow has a lot of ancient rituals and practices, and they're super secretive about how the House of Flame and Shadow actually operates. But beyond that, these individuals had reasons to run from the Asteri and to find sanctuary and seek refuge in the place where they felt like they would be most protected from the Asteri. And we barely got to see Fury. I think she popped up in the book maybe 1 or 2 times, depending on how you count it, but she was not relevant to this book or this plot at all. Also, Jezebel, we know that she has been cursed by one of the princes of hell. and that she joined House of Flame and Shadow when she could no longer be a part of the witch's coven because of the curse that was placed on her soul. I was really hoping to get more information. I feel like we're leaving House of Flame and Shadow with more questions than we have answers. What is actually happening within that house? Why does everybody feel like this is this kind of like relatively the safest house to be a part of? And what are the ancient practices? Who's really in control here? What are they actually doing? I want to know all of those things. And unfortunately, I feel like we did not get to know House of Flame and Shadow because the central characters that we were following, that we actually got their POVs from, like Rune, like the Hind, like Bryce, like Hunt, those people are not a part of House of Flame and Shadow, and so it felt very distant. So I'm a bit disappointed in that. So overall, I'm giving this book 3 out of 5 stars. It wasn't bad, but it certainly wasn't the best. I feel like we're leaving this with more questions than we have answers. We did kind of set up a bit of a plot for ACOTAR going forward, so hopefully we get to see more of Nesta, even though like she's not my favorite character. But Bryce does another cameo with Nesta towards the end of the book that kind of leave some questions and some perspectives on how ACOTAR is going to go forward. There was a comment made by Adius in the book, who is one of the 7 princes of hell. We only get to see 3 out of the 7, and he makes a comment that the other 4 are off fighting and protecting other realms and other worlds as well. So that to me feels like kind of like foreshadowing of we're not really going to get to see the other 4 princes in Crescent City, but they should pop up in whatever future series that she's going to be releasing. I know she just signed a deal for 7 more books. We have the next book on the release docket is going to be another ACOTAR book. I don't know what the book is going to be after that, but where these characters in House of Flame and Shadow is so open-ended that she can now write them in to whatever other hybrid story that she's going to connect, or whatever the series that she's going to connect. And so knowing that, it just feels like after dragging out the storyline of Crescent City and then finally doing the world some justice, it was just a necessary placement and a necessary book again to get her characters where she needs to be again. And so it kind of gives me the same feeling of how I felt when I finished House of Sky and Breath, which, by the way, I don't feel like we learned a lot about House of Sky and Breath anyway. So like, what's the point of naming the books after the houses if we're not actually going to get to know the houses? Like, do the houses not really matter? Is that just for the title? Who knows? I don't know. But yeah, this is the end of this vlog, and I'm a bit mid on it. I'm a bit average on it. I don't love it, but I also don't hate it, and I'm gonna call that a win. Let me know if you guys have read it, what your thoughts are about it. Oh, I did say that I was gonna mention earlier why I thought that the Asteri were different groups, because I can't remember the name of the Asteri that they find underneath the mountain. But when Bryce is in Prithian, they're under the mountain in the same prison, or similar to prison, to where the bone carver was kept. And they find that this Asteri that used to be a part of the ruling class of Prithian has been just taking a 15,000 year nap. She's just been casually sleeping in a crystallis for 15,000 years. And when she wakes up, Bryce is asking her questions, and she mentions Reglius, who is the actual ruling Asteri in Midgard, back in her world. And this Asteri in Prithian, what is her name? I don't know, but redacted. I'm going to call her redacted. She says, oh, I knew of Reglius, but, you know, she doesn't imply that they had a relationship or anything like that, but she refers to him almost as if, like, they're from the same world, and so they were both, like, world hoppers, so she knew who he was, and that he was going to learn from their mistakes, as in her group of Asteris and how they got defeated in Prithian, and that if he was in Midgard and he was in control of Midgard, he would not be so easy to let it go. So she was kind of referring to him as someone that she knew but didn't necessarily have a connection to. And it also, she didn't have much of an interest in Midgard, because if you are awake from a 15,000 year nap and you find out that your friends, your Asteri battle buddies or whatever like that have been outcasted, but they are now in control of another world, if you were a part of that group or whatever, wouldn't you have an interest in figuring out how to get to Midgard, where they are, connecting with them to see if you can bridge the gap between the worlds, if you can get some reinforcement or some reassurance, and to take over Prithian again? It just feels like when she found out that Reglius was in control of Midgard, it just kind of felt like, well, that's cool. He's had more success than we have had, but she displayed no interest in trying to communicate with him or get to him, or even had the hope that he was going to offer some type of help or assistance to her. I don't know. It just felt like she was less interested and more like intrigued in what Bryce was telling her about the Asteri back in Midgard. So that's how I got the impression of like, these aren't the same group. Like they're all Asteris and they're all from the same planet. But knowing that back on their planet they were warring a lot and they ended up destroying their world, and they realized that they needed to like go find other worlds to rule and to subjugate in order for them to survive. That would imply that we have several different factions of people all hopping world to world. So I would not be surprised if we see another group like the Asteri pop up in another series, in another realm in the Sarah J. Maas universe, because they are all out there. Anyways, thank you guys for watching my video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.